She found the transfers while closing his accounts. 11 years of them, 132 entries, all on the 14th of the month, all the same amount. $800. The recipient field listed a name she didn't recognize and an account number registered at a care facility in New Mexico. She sat at the kitchen table for a long time before she picked up her phone. She told herself she just wanted to understand. She told herself it was probably nothing. She had said that before, about things she found out after people died, and she had always been wrong. Margaret had been married to David for 14 years. They had met at a dinner party. The kind where you end up talking in the kitchen while everyone else is in the living room, and you look up and realize 2 hours have passed. He was 51, she was 47, he had never been married before. She had been, briefly, a long time ago, and it had not gone well. David was different, steady, a person who said what he meant and showed up when he said he would. He worked in commercial real estate, property appraisals, the kind of work that was technical and unglamorous and that he did well without needing anyone to notice. He came home at 6:15 most evenings. He cooked on Sundays. He remembered the names of her friends' children and asked after them specifically. He sent birthday cards by mail, not by text. Margaret's sister had said, early on, "This one is real." She had believed it, and nothing in 14 years had given her a reason not to. He died in February, a heart attack, early in the morning, before she was fully awake. She had heard him get up in the night and gone back to sleep without thinking much of it, and when she woke again to silence, she found him at the bottom of the stairs. The paramedics said it was fast. She had held on to that in the months since, repeating it to herself when the other thoughts came. The months after were what the months after always are, a series of tasks designed to keep you moving when you don't want to move. Estate paperwork, accounts to close, notifications to send. She had made a spreadsheet, which David would have approved of. She worked through it item by item. She was on the 7th line when she opened the bank statement and stopped. The name in the recipient field was Carla Vasquez. The account was registered to a residential care facility on the east side of Albuquerque. Margaret had never heard David mention anyone named Carla Vasquez. She had never heard him mention Albuquerque at all, not once in 14 years. She searched the name online. Carla Vasquez returned thousands of results, none of them connected to a care facility in New Mexico in any obvious way. She searched for the facility by name. It existed. A low beige building with a courtyard and wide windows, wheelchair ramps at every entrance. The website said it specialized in long-term neurological rehabilitation. She read the page twice. She told herself there were explanations. A business association she didn't know about. A charitable arrangement, some obligation from before they met. David had a life before her. She knew that, had always known it, had never felt the need to examine it closely. They had agreed early in their marriage that the past was the past. She had offered that to him as a kindness, and he had accepted it without much comment. She called the facility on a Thursday afternoon. She asked to speak with someone in administration. A woman came on the line, professional and measured, and asked how she could help. Margaret explained that her husband had recently passed and that she was calling about a payment arrangement he had maintained. The woman asked for his name. There was a pause, longer than a database search would require, longer than any computer delay could explain, and then the woman said she would need to transfer the call. The man who came on the line said his name was Gerald. He had a quiet, deliberate voice. He said he was sorry for her loss. He confirmed that a payment arrangement had been in place since early 2015 and that the payments had arrived every month without exception. He said the facility had appreciated the consistency. He said he wasn't sure what else he was authorized to tell her. Margaret asked if Carla Vasquez was a resident there. Gerald said yes. Margaret asked how long. He said 11 years. She asked if Carla was able to speak with people. He said her speech had improved considerably in recent years. He said she had a tablet. He said, carefully, that he would pass along Margaret's name and number, and that it would be Carla's decision whether to call back. The call came 6 days later. Margaret was in the garden when her phone rang, a number she didn't know. She almost let it go to voicemail. She answered on the 4th ring. Carla Vasquez was 53 years old. She had been an accountant. In November of 2015, she had been crossing a street near her apartment in Albuquerque on a Tuesday evening when she was struck by a car. The driver had not stopped. She had lain in the road for several minutes before anyone called for help. The injury to her brain stem had left her with limited mobility on her left side and persistent problems with balance and short-term memory. She had spent 3 years in acute rehabilitation before being moved to the residential facility. She had been there since. She did not know who had been paying. The payments had started about 6 months after the accident. She had been told only that a private donor had arranged ongoing support for her care. The facility had honored the anonymity from the beginning. Carla said she had wondered sometimes, in the early years, who it was. She had decided, after a while, that it was better not to know. And then she had stopped wondering altogether. Margaret sat down on the garden step. She asked Carla whether she had ever found out anything about the driver, the one who hadn't stopped. Carla said no. The police had investigated and the case was still technically open, but there had been no witnesses and no usable camera footage. She said it had been a hard thing to make peace with. She said she had made it, more or less, over time. She said it in the tone of someone describing something that had happened to someone else a long time ago. Margaret looked at the rosebush David had planted 3 years ago, the one she had told him was too close to the wall. She asked if she could call again. Carla said yes. Over the next 2 weeks, Margaret went through everything she could find. His email, his personal files in the study, a locked metal box at the back of his closet she had noticed before but never opened. She had always assumed it held something from the office. His keychain still had the key. Inside were 3 things: a manila envelope, a small notebook, and a folded piece of paper with a handwritten phone number she didn't recognize. The envelope contained a police report dated November 2015. A pedestrian struck by a vehicle at the intersection of Rio Grande Boulevard and Central Avenue in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Driver had fled the scene. Vehicle description: dark sedan, possibly blue or black. David had driven a dark blue sedan from 2012 until early 2016, when he traded it in and bought a gray one. He had not mentioned a reason at the time, and she had not thought to ask. The notebook was the kind sold at pharmacies, small enough to fit in a jacket pocket. His handwriting filled about 40 pages. It was not a diary. There were no personal reflections, no dates written as headers, almost nothing about himself. It was a record. Amounts, confirmation numbers, brief notes in the compressed shorthand of someone accounting for something they could not discuss with anyone. Confirmed received, status stable, next call December 14th, and further in. Spoke to Gerald, progress with PT. Left side improving, good news, and near the end, in the final entry, written sometime in January, 11 years. She doesn't know I exist. That's the arrangement, that's how it should be. He had been calling the facility. Not often, the notebook suggested a few times a year, brief calls, anonymous, asking after Carla's recovery. He had known about the physical therapy. He had tracked her mobility progress and the improvements to her speech. For 11 years he had been watching from a distance, paying for the care of a woman he had injured and never gone back to. Margaret sat with the notebook for a long time. She was not sure what she felt. She had imagined, in the first days of searching, that it might be an affair, had even told herself, quietly, that this would be simpler. An ordinary betrayal, a shape she would know how to hold. This was not that. This was something she didn't have a word for. She called her sister that evening. She read part of the notebook aloud and then stopped. Her sister was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "What are you going to do?" Margaret said she didn't know. There were 2 questions, and she could only answer one of them. The first was about what had happened in Albuquerque on that November night in 2015. What David had felt in the seconds after impact, how long it had taken him to find Carla's name, what he had said to himself in the months before the first payment cleared. That question she would never answer. The notebook gave her the arithmetic of what he had done. It gave her nothing about the inside of it. She could imagine several versions of a man driving away from an intersection on a dark evening, and not all of them were the same man. She didn't know which version was David. She thought she probably never would. The second question was about the payments. They were set to auto-transfer from an account she now controlled. They would stop unless she actively renewed the arrangement. The next payment date was 3 weeks away. She thought about what Carla had said, that she had made peace with not knowing. That the facility had become her world now. The courtyard in the afternoon, the programs, the staff she had known for a decade. That the support had made things possible that wouldn't otherwise have been possible. She had said it plainly, the way you describe weather that happened years ago, no gratitude and no bitterness, just fact. Margaret thought about a man who cooked on Sundays and sent birthday cards by mail, who had also driven away from an intersection and spent the next 11 years calling a care facility every few months to ask about someone's physical therapy progress. She did not forgive him. She did not condemn him either. She tried to hold both things at once and found that she could, barely, if she didn't push too hard on either side. She set up a fund. An attorney drafted the paperwork, an ongoing support arrangement drawn from David's estate, designated to continue for as long as Carla remained at the facility. She kept it anonymous. That was the arrangement. That was how it should be. She called Carla one more time to say that the support wasn't ending. She didn't explain how or why she knew this. She said only that she had looked into it and wanted Carla to know. There was a pause. Then Carla asked, "Do you know anything about who originally set it up?" Margaret said she thought it was someone who wanted to do right by her, but didn't know how to do it any other way. Carla said she understood that. They talked for a while longer, about the facility, the view from Carla's window on the south side, the physical therapy sessions that had gradually returned some use to her left hand over the past 2 years. It was an ordinary conversation, the kind you have when you've run out of the harder things to say. She flew to Albuquerque in April. There was a work conference in a city 2 hours north, and she added a day at the end without quite deciding to. The way you make a choice before you've admitted to yourself that you're making it. She told the facility she was a family friend. They let her into the courtyard where Carla sat most afternoons, in a chair near the south-facing wall. She didn't say who she was. She sat nearby in the sun, and they were quiet together for a while. She doesn't know if that was the right thing to do. She thinks David would have recognized the impulse, the need to be near something without being able to explain why or ask anything of it. She thinks he would have understood doing a thing before you fully understand your reasons, and living with that afterward. She thinks he might have said, "Yes, that's the arrangement, that's how it should be." #story notes. Fictional. All names, events, and details are invented.